Hey everybody, it's Naya from EcoWellCo. I am back yet again with another video talking about our connection to nature. In the previous video, I talked about our connection to nature as relations to how we respond to stimulus. So we have a stimulus and there's a response. And just as we respond to stimulus, so does the natural environment, and so does everything that we're experiencing around us responding to some sort of a stimulus. It's this constant loop and feedback system where we put out a stimulus in which the environment responds to, the environment puts out a stimulus and thus we respond to. It's a constant connection that just continues to happen. So the conclusion of that video was really just us taking the time to understand that connection and to think about how we live our lives, things that we do, and how that impacts nature, and vice versa, how the things that nature does, how it impacts us, in both negative and positive ways. Today's video is going to be more about thinking about connection with nature in terms of thinking of this grand world that we're in right now as one large body. So as you know, with your own personal body being like a small universe, there's a certain equilibrium that is that the body aims to exist in pretty much all the time, right? There's a certain chemistry level that the body seeks. There's a certain balance that the body seeks. There's a certain amount of water that the body needs, food that the body needs. There's a certain amount of electrical pulses that the body has to put in order to make things go. The amount of oxygen, blood, bacteria that are beneficial for us, fungus that are beneficial for us. There's so many. We are our own ecosystem that then has a subset of smaller ecosystems. We are also a communication chamber. Signals are sent here and there, and things are happening constantly. It's intense. We have cells that are responsible for taking care of us, making sure that they're battling disease, any type of foreign substance that is 100% not supposed to be there, something that is trying to take our equilibrium off balance. So as we think about just the things that we go through, like when we get sick, when we have the flu, or battling this coronavirus, or anything else, or if we're putting too much, fatty and sugary and fried foods into our diet and not enough fruits and vegetables and grains and nuts. But in truth, there is a certain equilibrium that our body is responsible for maintaining just itself naturally, and that we impart in terms of what we ingest, what we do, what we think, where we go, what our environmental conditions are, what's being impressed upon us. It all goes hand in hand in creating an environment that is of equilibrium for our physical body. So just as we can think about ourselves and how we want to protect our body as much as possible, we want it to be in a stress-free state as much as possible, we want it to be disease-free as much as possible, consider the entirety of the natural environment, which we are a part of as human beings, but consider the entirety of the natural environment. Let's think that it's separate from us first. Think of it as its own body, its own system. It has its own way of maintaining its equilibrium, its own way of trying to make sure it has enough food, enough water, enough balance, enough chemical balance, enough energetic balance, enough just making sure that everyone in their smaller ecosystems and their larger ecosystems have everything that they need to maintain a level of balance and equilibrium. So now that we can consider ourselves and our own small universe and how we want to make sure that we are as stress-free and as healthy as possible, that is our goal, right? To be comfortable, right? Imagine that the natural environment wants the same exact things that you want when it comes to being able to move about in your body, do things in your body, go places, see things, achieve things, feel certain ways that feel good to you, right? The natural environment wants the same thing. Now, since we're all living here together, being the natural environment and us and our physical bodies, let's consider this entire world, all of Mother Earth, one body in and of itself. Now, just as in our bodies are trying to reach equilibrium and the natural environment wants to reach a level of equilibrium, the entirety of all these systems together want to reach a state of harmony and equilibrium. It's how things are able to maintain and go and flow. But the issue a lot of the times is, with our physical bodies, when we have foreign substances or there's too much of something, the natural environment is going to want to get back to its state of balance. The scales are going to tip in some way, and it's going to fight the foreign substance. It's going to do the different things that our bodies would do. So if we're one gigantic system, just as we hope for our bodies to be able to reach some sort of equilibrium yet again if we're put off balance, the entirety of the body that is Earth And humans and us being a part of the ecosystem, like we're playing a specific role just as nature is playing its own role, just as the birds are playing a role, the trees are playing a role, the sky is playing a role, the soil was playing a role, and the fruits and vegetables are playing a role. Like everything that's going on around us are playing a role in this gigantic body that we are existing in. And so if there's too much of one thing, or if there's too much, like let's just say that a lot of our activities as human beings, like let's coin our waste, right? So if there's too much waste from us, then eventually that's going to pile up and be some sort of disease, right? If we're thinking about the whole earth as being a body system, think of waste as like cancer. And over time, the cancer cells, they keep going, they want to spread. So if we see waste as like this cancer that just keeps building and building and building and building and building, and it spreads all over the place, as we know, like we can find debris pretty much anywhere now, it just spreads all over the place. That becomes a problem. It clogs, it can, cancer cells can clog things, push things out of equilibrium. I mean, and so imagine trash being like cancer cells, clogging like pipes, clogging waterways, clogging animals, clogging fresh air, just like clogging just everything, right? So think of trash like a relation to trash and cancer in that way. Or if there's too much of one chemical in our body that pushes us off equilibrium, and imagine the chemicals that we're spewing into this greater body being the natural environment, same thing. Or even if we imagine that the temperature in our bodies are pushed off balance, and our body responds to try to regulate our own personal temperature, the natural environment hopes and aims to regulate its own temperature as well based on the areas. Generally the human body is what most people are 98.6. The natural environment wants to maintain a certain level of temperature throughout. Granted, as we all know, temperature is different regionally, right, throughout the world. But there is a certain overall atmospheric temperature that it aims to maintain in order to, reach some sort of equilibrium. So if we can think as the entirety of the Earth system and the role that we are playing in the Earth system as, just as in the previous video speaking about stimulus and response, if we are stimulated in a way where our personal internal temperature is affected and it changes, the response is to employ mechanisms that are going to help us get back to a normal and sustainable temperature rate so that other parts of our body won't begin to shut down. So, for example, if you have a very high temperature, like maybe 104, 105, that's danger levels, and you maintain that temperature for way too long, parts of your body, your organs, different things can begin to shut down. So imagine the natural environment is experiencing massive temperature changes. Parts of it are going to shut down. Certain things will not be able to exist. As the temperatures in the oceans continue to rise, so does, it begins to put the acidic and the chemical balance in the ocean off, which then impacts the marine life and impacts the coast. I don't know if you ever heard about coral bleaching, but that's pretty much the death of coral reefs, which many of the coral reefs throughout our environment have already begun to experience. So I don't know, I just wanted to think about our bodies in relation to the natural environment, because it is a way in which we are connected. It is a way in which just as we are hoping for equilibrium, so is the natural environment. And just as we are hoping for equilibrium with ourselves and maybe other people, and as we're hoping that the natural environment can achieve some sort of equilibrium that is sustainable for us to live our lives, we have to understand that we are also one entity, one body with the natural environment, and we are actively playing a role in the health and wellness of the environment, just as the environment is playing an active role in our health and wellness. We depend on its bounty and its fruits in order to maintain a level of health and wellness for ourselves, in order to eat, in order to survive. Just as the natural environment is depending on us to steward it in a sustainable and harmonious way. As I mentioned, the natural environment, yes, experiences, if we consider ourselves outside of the realm of, there are things that we can do that can be cancerous to the natural environment. This is the age-old Bio 101 thing. For any folks who have been able to take a biology class, you learn about carrying capacity, right? So there are certain amounts of let's just say you have a fox and you have rabbits. So rabbits being the prey, it's the food source for the fox, and the fox being the predator. If you have a plethora of rabbits, you're going to eventually see a spike in the amount of foxes, right? Because you have plenty of food. But then if the number of foxes go way over, then eventually they're going to eat all the rabbits, and the foxes are going to die because there's not enough food. Another thing about that is, so eventually you're going to reach like that carrying capacity, that level of equilibrium for both the fox and the rabbit to kind of exist on this scale of, okay, they're kind of existing around this line of its carrying capacity. Same thing, right? So let's just say you have a garden full of carrots and celery and all different types of things, and then the rabbits come and they're like, oh, this is so great, and they start mating, have all these babies, and they just eat up all the carrots and all the celery. Well, eventually they're going to start dying off because they're pretty much at a loss of their food source, which means that they're going to get to a level where now the carrots and celery their populations can get back, and so now they're existing at, again, finding another level of equilibrium to exist at for the amount of food that they have for themselves. Now, I'm not saying that there are too many people on this planet. That's not what I'm saying. I don't want anyone to misconstrue that. There's actually plenty of room, plenty of food, plenty of air, plenty of everything to go around to sustain the human population. The issue is the way in which we are living our lives. The issue is the way in which we are spewing massive amounts of waste, air pollution, everything into our natural environment that is harming the very earth, the very system, the very body that we depend on to survive, to live. And the reality is that in order for us to begin to see a more sustainable and harmonious and an environment in which that is equal, that is equitable, that is liberated from the system of just kind of like take, no harmony, we have to be able to check ourselves in the way that we are living, the way that we are existing, the way that we want our lifestyles to be based on what we already know, based on what we've been told, versus what is truly sustainable, not only for ourselves and our health and wellness, but for the natural environment. If we are putting out cancerous things into the natural environment to the point where it is clogging, its temperature is raising, there's too many foreign substances, it can't reach balance, it can't reach harmony anymore. If we're putting out too much of that, of course the response is going to be trying to reach some sort of equilibrium, or trying to evolve in a way that can reach a new level of equilibrium, which if the natural environment is responding, if the body of the natural environment is responding in that way, its response is then going to elicit a response from us. We're either going to make it or we're not going to make it. We're either going to adapt or we're not going to adapt. We're either going to be flexible and try to figure out how to live harmoniously with the new changes in the natural environment, or we're not. And that's where we are right now in our current system. We are being asked by Mother Nature, actually not even asked, we are being requested, demanded to rethink everything that we do. The way that we understand the world, the way that we see things, the way that we live, the way in which we don't think that we're a part of nature, but yet we're the main ones taking, but never giving back. We're the main ones deforesting the very lungs of the planet and never giving back. The main ones killing the ones who are trying to educate us on how to live harmoniously. The ones that are saying, hey, we can actually live here and be freaking happy and feel good about it. But it's like this cause of human greed, the cause of just everything, you know what I mean? I don't want to say that humans naturally and inevitably are cancerous and terrible beings. This is not true. I think that humans are beautiful and they're wonderful. We are flawed. Yes, we are definitely flawed as human beings. And there's definitely a lot that we could work on individually and collectively and as part of the greater body that is the natural environment. But a lot of times the issue with us is just kind of like thinking that we are separate from nature, thinking that we are separate from each other, thinking that we are not actually one whole system, one body, and that we are cells, a part of the greater body. We are organs, a part of the greater body, being the natural environment. I'm pointing up as in I'm pointing to nature, right? But this is really the point of today's video, is for us to think about our connection to Mother Earth as we think about our connection to our very physical bodies. We see Mother Earth as a separate thing from us, but it's not separate. We see it as something that we just take, but yet what can it take from us? How can we give back? How can we take and then replace? That's the next part. That's the next wave. How can we take and then replace? How can we take in a way that is careful? Just as when, we have, let's just say you have your own garden and you're caring for your garden, and you're making sure that when you are pulling things up, you're gently, massaging the roots, pulling the roots, that you're gently taking care of your plant, because you want your plant to bear fruit for you to consume. You want your plant to bear flowers so that you can admire and appreciate. You hope that the soil is stable enough, is balanced enough, has the right chemistry or microbial balance to reach success for your plant. The same thing that we want for our miniature garden is the same thing that we want for our body, and the same thing the natural environment wants for itself is the same thing that we should want for everything all around us, for ourselves, for nature, and for being a part of the grander body that is the earth. Can the earth survive without us? I think so, yes. But at the same time, that's just not the case. We're here. We're human. We're meant to be a part of this system. We're meant to take part. We're meant to live harmoniously with nature. There's no point in envisioning life without a nature without us. I mean, we could envision it, yes, but there's so much beauty in also us being harmonious, living with the natural environment. I mean, there's so much beauty and benefit that we get from being in nature. So many positive, I've been out in the sun for maybe 30, 45 minutes at this point. I feel amazing. Like the vitamin D, I feel it pumping in my system. I love it. Listening to the birds chirp, seeing the trees on the street, just having that experience to be in nature and to see the fruits and to experience the bounty that is the natural environment is so beautiful and so pleasing to me. And I'm so happy that I'm able to be here. And I'm so happy that we as human beings are able to be here and our vast diversity and our vast connections. But I also want us to remember that not only do we need to be thankful and grateful that we are able to live here, but we also need to strive for above and beyond and to learn how to break free of the mold of our current understanding of how we are existing here, and to learn to exist here in a harmonious way, in a way that not only supports the natural environment, but that it supports us. It supports our most vulnerable populations. It supports our needs. It supports everything that we could ever need, to the point where we are living here in a way that is sustainable. We are going to feel the brunt of what is coming at us and how the natural environment is responding so that it can reach a new level of harmony. We are going to feel it, and the natural environment is going to feel whatever we're doing. It's one system. It's one feedback loop. It's cause and effect, stimulus and response. It's all connected. We are all connected, and I think that's really just what I want us to understand at this point. I've said it a couple times. I've repeated it because I'm really trying to hone it in. But anyway, we are one body, one in ourselves and our small universe, one in our grander universe with other people, and one with the grander universe of the natural environment. This earth is one, and we are one with this earth. And that's all I ever want us to know, to remember, and to implore as we continue to shift in our lifestyles, as we continue to connect with ourselves and connect with other people. Let us remember to also connect, to root ourselves, to ground ourselves in the healing energy and the power that is Mother Earth. Let us remember to live harmoniously with Mother Earth, and let us remember to always strive for stewardship, to have compassion, and to have love for ourselves, each other, and all of nature. We are all one body. Let us always remember this. Thanks, everyone.